It's Divas That Care Radio. Stories, strategies, and ideas to inspire positive change. Welcome to Divas That Care, a network of women committed to making our world a better place for everyone. This is a global movement for women, by women, engaged in a collaborative effort to create a better world for future generations. To find out more about the movement, visit divasthatcare.com after the show. Right now, though, stay tuned for another jolt of inspiration.
Hello, all. Welcome to Divas That Care Network. I am Joyce Benning, and I will be your host for this invigorating, robust lifestyle show. I want to thank each one of our listeners, as I am grateful for each one of you. And I am so excited today to have our monthly returning diva, Kate Neligan, with us. And she is going to speak about wild horses. Oh my, am I ever excited. Kate, could you please do a brief introduction on yourself today?
Sure, yeah. As always, thanks so much for having me.
You're welcome.
And I'm happy to introduce myself. So I'm an equine-partnered life and business coach, healer, author, and speaker, and I work primarily near Boulder, Colorado, and I also travel quite frequently to Los Angeles and other places. And I really see myself as a bridge between horses and humans in the power and the transformation that's possible in the human-animal bond.
Oh, wow. Oh, what a great brief description of everything you do. That's awesome. Well, with our title today, Wild Horses, I'm just going to kind of let you take it and share with what you would like to start sharing to our listeners today about wild horses.
Yeah, thanks so much. This is a topic that is very much in the news right now and in a lot of the horse groups on Facebook and elsewhere. And so it's really been on my heart and my mind a lot. I'm so grateful to have a platform like this show to be able to talk about things. And really my intention is just to educate and to provide resources. It's a very, I'll give you some background, but it's a very political, it's a very emotional issue for a lot of people. And my goal really, especially for right now, we could talk about this for hours, but we have a short amount of time, is really to stay out of taking anyone's side. It's really just to provide information. People really need to do their own research to see what's going on, to follow different sides of the story and form their own opinions and get inspired to help in the ways they can. There's different ways to help. So one of my goals today is really just to educate on what's going on and then also to give resources so that people can connect with different ways that they can learn more about wild horses, be with wild horses, and contribute to them. And I'm curious also, have you been with any of the wild ones before?
No, I have not had that experience, but oh my, I just listened to is it Onicu speak, the horses?
Yes, yeah.
And oh my goodness, was that interesting. That would be an incredible experience. Have you been in a wild horse herd?
I have. I've been in a few at this point, and so it's something that I think when I was little, my parents took me, I was a horse-loving girl at, a very young age. I loved all animals. I started riding at 10, and my parents took me to Chincoteague when I was really little, and I remember just watching the horses even from a distance, and it really deeply touched, my soul and my heart, and it just stayed with me on such a deep level. And I really do think to a large degree, those moments kind of shaped me and my future because it's I really wanted people to have the real essence of the horse, which is different from when I was riding, right? And we were saddling and I was focusing on a to-do list and actions, but really being with them in their wild environment, Chincoteague on the East Coast, it was really, which is, Misty, the book Misty, famous, all of that. Right. It really, it inspired quite a bit.
Oh, I can only imagine the energy and the vibrance and the freedom that they have. It'd just be magical is how I see it in the pictures that I've seen and the interviews I've listened to. It just has to be a very magical, touching time. And as you said, you feel that really, truly influenced you. Oh, wow. That is incredible. Goodness. Well, do you have are Mustangs one of the main ones that you work through or would like to educate people about today on wild horses? Or is there a certain one that you would like to educate our listeners on today?
Yeah, so the first thing is I think a lot of people, even a lot of my friends, did not know that wild horses even existed in the United States. And there's about 70,000 or a little more wild horses in the United States. About half of them are in Nevada. And of the 70,000 plus, about half of them are in what's called holding. The Bureau of Land Management, otherwise known as the BLM, has horses in holding for adoption, and it's really to manage the land because they're sharing the land with cattle as well. And so the Mustangs, it's interesting because a lot of people actually say technically they're feral animals, not wild, because they are descendants from the Spanish horses that were brought over here. And so the horses that I've been around in Colorado and California, the wild herds, are Mustangs. And I've also been around a very unique herd in California that's privately managed, nothing to do with the BLM, that are of Morgan descent, they believe, and they really do look like Morgans. So they're very different looking. And so, yeah, I find that, first of all, people need to know that, A, we have wild horses, B, how many there are, and C, where they are, which is mostly the West, and California, Utah, and whatnot. And what kind of brought this topic up for today is what you mentioned before, the Onakoi herd, and is being rounded up because there was a law passed in the 70s around how many can actually be on the land at any one time, and so they're rounding them up, and there's new adoption policies and whatnot, but a lot of activists are involved trying to get them to be able to stay on the land, because what happens in the roundup is they are using helicopters, and it can be really certainly frightening for the horses, but it can separate herds of families, and they can also get hurt. And some of them do die in the process, and then they're living in basically holding pens where they're fed and watered and sheltered, but that's really it. They have a very small access area, whereas before they were, on many, many acreage. And so it's quite a big change for them. And so there's different, the ones that I sort of suggest that people really start to follow and look into is two types of groups. One are the sanctuaries, who are doing a great job at education and advocacy. And those are Great Escape Mustang Sanctuary in Colorado, outside of Denver. You can actually visit them. They partner with the BLM. They do TIP training, which is essentially a certified training program to learn how to gentle a Mustang so that it can be rideable and for adoption. And then there's the Return to Freedom Sanctuary in Lompoc, California, which is up a little bit from Los Angeles. They live on many acres there, and I've been there as well. They have wild photo safari tours. And then there's Skydog Sanctuary, which has a property also in California and Malibu, but also up in Oregon. And they're, each of their founders, it's a female in each case, they're very dedicated to preserving the wild horses, right? I mean, people think that they're overrun on the land, but 70,000 is not a lot, especially when you think about there's about 6 million domestic horses here in the United States in ownership, right? People owning horses. So that's really very small, and we are at risk of potentially losing them if we're not really responding to the issue with the most care. And so there's a lot of different solutions that people talk about, and I find that, it's important that we don't think just one solution is the only solution. There's really probably a good combination, some of which is birth control, some of which is better land management, so there's enough forage for the animals to share, some of which is really starting to look at how much cattle is actually needed versus the wild ones who were there before, and really starting to, if we can, start to take out all the emotion and really get into the logistics of what these animals need and really find compromise. But there hasn't been. There's really a priority of cattle owners and beef over wild ones. And so I believe part of like my mission in the human-animal bond is really to get people to start to view horses as equals, to start to let go of speciesism, that we are not humans. Man is not the number one superior species on the planet. If you look at it in many ways, we've done more damage to Earth than any other species. So it's really starting to, and the thing is that I think a lot of people don't know what's going on, right? I didn't a few years ago until I saw that they were potentially going to clear out the holding areas and that, up to 30 to 40,000 horses could be sent to slaughter. And that's, it's scary. So I blogged at the time on Huffington Post about that, and I've really been following the issue ever since. So these sanctuaries, I've been to all of them, and I support them, and I want to raise funds for them. I want to bring people to them. And then there's also the other group I highly recommend is the wild horse photographers. And there's so many incredible ones, but they are often a voice for the wild horses because they spend the most time with them. They're out there day in and day out. They know, they've named many of them. They know the family units. They know their health. They've been tracking them for years. And so some of my favorites are Carol Walker. She's in Colorado. And Jamie and Deb, who are both, and I forgot their last names at this exact moment, but they have a beautiful new film series. It's a docu-series, and the first episode is out on YouTube, and it's called Wild Lands, Wild Horses. And it's really a very non-judgmental, open perspective at what's going on. And I find that both of them have great Instagrams to follow as well, where they're posting. And there's just quite a bit of wild photographers that are, Jen Rogers is another one who I recently connected with and started following, who are doing such a great job. The advocacy groups are great as well because what they'll often do is create petitions. They'll create actual action steps to take. With the Anakai herd right now, the biggest action step we could take is to actually call the White House and ask the president to do something because the local government is not at this point looking to protect them. So yeah, there's a lot there. So I'm going to pause because I know I just gave a lot of information, and I should have said up front, grab your notebook if you're listening, because these are some of the places that I find that people want to start following and just learning about them, and at minimum just to connect with their energy. What you said before, that kind of vibrance and the magic and the power, and that there's so much there for people, and we can talk about the energy of the wild ones here in a second. But any questions from what I shared? Any comments?
Oh, I'm taking notes too as you were talking, writing down names, because what great information for our listeners to know on how they can help, like following these photographers and getting involved in that way and supporting them in different ways, because like you said, they are kind of the voice for the horse. They are with the herds. They are showing the pictures of them. They've learned to kind of know them. And I love that. And different ways on the advocacy groups, the sanctuaries, and how everyone, if we would just all work together. I love the part about, too, that we just all need to live together and respect one another, because we were all created. So just live in peace with all of the animals and all of nature. That is so beautiful to me. I just love that, because we all can give something to help each other and it makes it the full circle of life. is how I feel. So, yes, you were just touching on everything like that. It was just beautiful, Kate. I loved it.
Thanks. Yeah, there's a lot of, certainly nonprofits that are doing more advocacy and activism, and I do find them to be helpful as well for information. Sometimes they have their own specific agenda, as, if you follow just the BLM, they have their own specific agenda because they're a government-owned, organization. So that's why I sort of like to follow, some of these other groups that are providing, really a space for them to live and to stay, to thrive and to have the right amount of food. Some of the misinformation is that there's not enough water, there's not enough forage on the land. And while I do believe that the land is more depleted than maybe it ever has been, and that we really do need to start to look at better soil management and better land management, not just better animal management, there is, sometimes that's a tactic people are using, whereas the actual wild horse photographers are able to show photos of their troughs being filled and what's actually happening. So, I would imagine both things are happening, that sometimes there is issues with their forage and other times you can see, real footage in real time and see that they're healthy and full and that there is, water. So then it really becomes, how do we do birth control so there isn't so there is still some population management, because there isn't any natural predator, so to speak, of the wild horses in some of these areas. But the thing that I just keep thinking about, and I don't know if it's possible, but it just is on my mind and heart a lot, which is, we have Yellowstone and Yosemite and Grand Canyon, and we have some of these beautiful, incredible national parks. And I just wonder, the national parks are preserved, right? The bison in there, the oldest herd in the United States is in Yellowstone. Like, how can we potentially start to leverage, whether it's a new national park for the wild ones or that people visit, people want to be with these animals, they will pay top dollar that then can go into helping to manage them, right? And even if they're not 100% living on wild land, so to speak, and they're still fed hay, which is the case at Skydog. They're still fed hay, and, same with, they're supplemented, especially throughout the winter, they're supplemented with hay. But how could we potentially create an actual larger sanctuary, even if it is a national park, where they are protected forever, and, we go and visit them that way, and we pay, a top fee for the national park, and then add-ons if we want to do photo safaris or, merchandise or whatever it might be. To me, I almost wonder of could we protect them that way, where there's actual dedicated space and land. And the challenge is certainly, they're across multiple states right now. So how is that done? But if the majority are in Nevada, what could we do in Nevada or Nevada? I never know how to say it. And have it really protected in that space where, a good half of them are. So it's just something I've been thinking about lately, just trying to think through how can they always stay protected, still be fed, not necessarily interfere with cattle, because I just feel like we're going to lose that battle when it comes down to wild ones and activists versus a lot of money in cattle ranching. So I just am like, what can we do? And adoption, the challenge with adoption, I love adoption, and I love the fact that we can learn to gentle them. And, there's the movie The Mustang where they're, prison inmates are learning to gentle horses, all of that. I think there's a lot of potential there for people to own Mustangs and to celebrate them and to showcase them. The Mustang Makeover showcases what's possible with them, although that training is very fast. But ultimately, a lot of people can't necessarily get out, the whole East Coast can't necessarily get out to California and, adopt Mustangs and bring them back. It's a bit of a harder process. So the risk that people don't necessarily know that's happening is that the horses are, if it's $125 to adopt in places, that's a very low cost. And if people get $1,000 plus for an animal in the meat market, they send them down to Mexico. and or abroad where people are still buying meat, eating meat, like France, Sweden, and other places, and Mexico. And so there's really, the challenge is that, that there's like an incentive almost for them to be sold for meat. And now with the new adoption law where they were essentially giving you $1,000 and then you could go and sell that horse. Now, obviously, there's a whole, you're not allowed to sell that. You're not allowed to buy or adopt. I should say adopt. You're not allowed to adopt to then sell them for meat, but there's no tracking system, right, for that. Yeah. And so it's really a bit of a challenge, and I think people don't understand that that's kind of the darker side of what's actually going on with some of these horses. And so it's, there's really a process of, do they have to leave their families and their homes, right, that they've had for many, many, many years, and and then there's also if they do, how long do they have to stay in a holding pen before adoption? And then if they do get adopted, are they going to good homes or are they going to the meat market, right? So there's really like a whole spiral and domino effect that happens with it. So there's a lot, but ultimately I really wanted to speak today just to educate people about all the different layers to this, because most of my friends don't even know this is happening, right? My kind of horsey friends. And so I think it's just important that we know this information, and from there, we protect what we love. So I just want to get more people to experience the wild ones, either through video, photos, tours, however it is, meeting your friend's Mustang, whatever it takes, so that your heart opens and then you feel like you can do your part to protect them. And it may be, sending money. It may be actually adopting one, right? There's lots of different ways that we can help them.
Yes. Yes. Oh, yes. This is a great way, like you said, the layers. There's so many layers of it that a lot of people do not understand, or hadn't even probably realized that we still had wild horses. And to me, that is such a small number, that there's only 70,000. I mean, that doesn't sound like many at all wild horses left in the United States. Is that just in the United States?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot more in, like, I believe it's like Australia and other places, but yes. And then also there's only, half of them are actually still free roaming wild horses. About half of them are 30,000 plus are in different holding pens. And if you see what the holding pens are like, no one really wishes that on a horse, especially a horse that used to be a wild one. They're living together and it's confined, so it's an intense issue for a lot of people, and I am doing my best to not try to take just one stance, right? Like that we should do this or we shouldn't do that. It's just like, let's get educated. Can we get all the different parties together? I mean, maybe that's wishful thinking because there's so many different interests, so to speak.
Yes.
Well, there's essentially two interests. There's the people who are interested in protecting the wild ones, and then there's the people who are interested in more so protecting the land or the cattle industry. And so they're very different, and they sometimes see horses as nuisances. So it's really, how do we change the perspective of, like, horses have been the biggest companion. We think it's man's best friend is a dog, but horses have been through us with everything, how many died and more and how many carried us and for transportation and mail and you name it. The horses have been an integral fabric of the United States. And so I look at the Mustang, if you were to have a animal that represents the entire United States, to me, it's the Mustang. It really is. And so it's this American heritage that I think we need to protect. It's not just the Wild West. It's not just the cowboy culture. It is what has kept us in this whole freedom, right? This whole energy of freedom, which we hold so dearly here in the United States. And we've worked so hard for with our Constitution and everything else that ultimately I feel like the Mustang is an incredible representation. But a lot of people, I think, have gone away from their own wildness. A lot of people are in this very, I have to work all the time. I'm connected to my device all the time, which is by no means wild. It's very man-made. And that returning to our roots and to nature and to looking at the sky and looking at the mountains And literally that kinesthetic experience of being alive, the physical sensations, like the raw power that we have as spirits in a body, that's what the wild horses represent. And I think we need to all get back to respecting that, embracing it, and really protecting it.
Oh, I so agree. Oh, that is just beautifully put, because, I mean, you said that in such a beautiful way of how just getting back to nature and they representing the energy of freedom and their spirits. I mean, yeah, we can look at a computer and there's no interaction. I mean, there's no spirit there like there is when you get out with a horse or out in nature with the animals. The spirits, it just lifts you. It is just an incredible feeling. And yes, so many people have drifted away from that. And if we can just educate people on what these horses have to offer and bring back into life, oh, that is just beautiful. And I love how you planted the seed about your vision is to have a park where they could be protected and people could see them and really experience what they have to offer, because you and I know the energy that horses give and the magical presence of them. And other people, if they could experience that and just realize it, oh, it would just be so beautiful to just all live together in harmony.
Yeah, and it's not that far reached. It's just that we have to really start caring. And the thing that I've seen is a lot of people that are in buildings or other places they're just not connected to that element. I think they want it, but they forgot that they want it. And I've noticed even in my coaching that, some men are really intimidated around horses because of how much majesty and bridled power and, strength and gentleness and beauty. It's a lot for people. It's overwhelming. But so people often kind of push it away, but it's like really confront that side of ourselves, that raw side, and embrace it. And we actually become more whole with that. And there's nothing to fear there with the horses. They really, they're so connected to our spirit. My concern is that we start killing the American spirit, the human spirit, when we kill the Mustang and the wild spirit. That's really my concern, is that it's just going to negatively affect everything. It's not just about the horses even, so.
Right. Oh, how I truly agree. Okay, this has just been incredible. I would love to do another interview with you and go more into detail about the spirit that the wild horses can give and the freedom, the energy that they can offer to the people to see, so our listeners can hear what all is available through that and see if we to work together to find a safe haven for them. I would love to do another sequel to this, because this has just been incredible. I loved every minute of it.
Oh, thank you. And I had the idea, maybe we do it next time, is to really channel the collective of the wild horses and what they want us to know about what they represent and the energy that they're being on the planet, what they're contributing to all of life here, all of Earth. So I'm happy to get into a space and do that in the future on a call. That would be really fun.
Oh, that would be awesome. I think that would just be great to do a sequel right in August right away, because this is incredible. I just love it. And just real briefly, can you, some of the people, if this has touched our listeners' ears, how is the best way to connect with you so that they could maybe get some more information if they're interested in the photographers or in some ways that they could help? What would be the best way to connect with you, Kate?
Yeah, thank you. When I share this recording from this show, I will post it in Equine Rockstars, which is actually the group on Facebook is changing from Equine Rockstars to Awakening with Equines, and that is the new name. And so people can look up that group, join it, and then I will put links to all these sanctuaries I mentioned and all the wild horse resources in one post. So it makes it really easy. People could also private message me at Kate Neligan Equine Coach on Instagram, and I'm happy to share stuff there as well. But I really would suggest that Awakening with Equines group on Facebook.
Oh, Oh, I love that. Oh, that is just great, Kate. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for all the incredible information you gave us today. This was just awesome. Thank you again, Kate, for being my guest.
Thank you. And also, fun fact, today is I Love Horses Day. So thank you for having me today. It means a lot. Yes, it's I Love Horses Day. So, yeah.
Oh, I love that. Oh, that is just awesome. Thank you again.
Thank you.
You are so welcome. And I want to thank all of our listeners for listening to this absolutely incredible interview with our amazing returning diva, Kate Neligan. And please stay tuned because she is on the third Thursday of every month at 11 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, and listen to more of as she shares her wisdom and knowledge. And be sure to check out all the other hosts and their shows on divasthatcare.com. Have a fantastic day, animals, and especially your horses. A big extra hug today, and share all your love with each one of them. Until we connect again on Robust Lifestyles, stay strong and healthy.
Thanks for listening. This show was brought to you by Divas That Care. Connect with us on Facebook, on Instagram, and of course on divasthatcare.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter so you don't miss a thing.